Alright, I just want to do a quick video. I'm going to tell this something along the lines of all these celebrities are preparing for SHTF. Now it's funny. On the one hand, the government and all these celebrities will sit there and tell you, oh, do your part, to help save the planet, so stop using plastic straws and, drive in unnecessary places and, cut back on whatever it is you're doing to pollute the environment. But yet, of course, on the other hand, it doesn't stop them from, flying in their private jets, right? So here it is, they want you to go for all these, hoops and hurdles to cut back on your pollution of the environment. But they themselves, they give no effort to try to, you know, live the life that they're telling their followers to live. It's pathetic and retarded. But here's the other thing: is it seems like now that all these celebrities are building their own, private bunkers. They're buying property, whether it be out in the middle of nowhere or out in the mountains, and they're having these doomsday bunkers installed. Like, say for instance, there's a company named Atlas Survival Shelters, right? And this guy's typically does like interviews a handful of times on this channel out there called Canadian Prepper. You can look him up. But this guy that owns the Atlas Survival Shelters, he was saying that, they have a lot of, celebrities that people typically, see in pop culture or movies or on the news. And of course, the billionaires as well, who are, getting in contact with Atlas to come out and install these shelters at their property. And he even said there's, he's under contract, so he can't say the exact name of the individual because, he could get in trouble for that. But he'll tell you that, there's some of these billionaires out there, who are going out of their way to install some of these bunkers that are worth, in some instances, like $100 or $200 million. So it should show you that, hold on a second, if the government's saying that, there is no problem, there is no SHTF scenario coming, there's nothing to be worried about, right? Everything's under control. It's like, okay, well, if that's the case, why are all these celebrities and, CEOs and, top 1% of the society, why are they going out and spending hundreds of millions of dollars on creating these bunkers that they can survive in for 50 or 100 years underground? It's almost as if they have foreknowledge, that's being restricted from the average person. And obviously you can see the sarcasm in my voice because it is what it is, right? It's not almost as if it's that. It truly is that. But, the bizarre thing is the average person out here, they'll be like, whatever, man. They're just, they're just paranoid. That's why they're, installing bunkers. They're just paranoid. There's nothing serious that's going to happen, right? Nothing ever happens. So, okay, well, everybody been saying this for the longest time. I mean, shit, if we were to time travel back to, say, the 2010s, right, or like 2015, and tell people that, in the next couple of years, the whole world's going to be shut down due to a, well, I can't use the word on here, but you can read between the lines, right? 2020. Nobody would believe you, right? Nobody could fathom something like that actually taking place in the world, right? Like, everybody's aware about what happened back in the 1300s, right? With the Black Death, right? Bubonic plague. Everybody knows about that, but that can't happen today. It's it's a thing of the past, with modern medicine and everything we have. But lo and behold, it happened. I'll give another example. Back when the Russian army was gathering on the border with Ukraine, everybody said, they're just showing off their military. They're just doing drills, right? Nothing ever happens, right? It's nothing's gonna happen over there. And here we are now, nearly 4 years into the war that's going on over in that region. But remember, nothing ever happens, right? Nothing ever happens. And it's so remarkable to me, after giving all these examples that clearly prove these people wrong, that there is a reason to be concerned with certain things like this, they'll still sit there and hold that notion that, nothing ever happens, everything is okay, the government has everything under control. No, that's bullshit. Total bullshit. Another thing to take note of is that it seems like every other day now, World War III is being talked about in the news. Now, hell, if you were to tell people that like 10 years ago, nobody would believe you. That, like the president of America would be on TV talking about the imminent threat of a third world war. Especially these knuckleheads out here, these preterists. Oh, everything's okay, but Jesus is ruling the world today. It's like, wow, it's crazy, man. These knuckleheads and imbeciles and, simps that are, walking around out here or running their mouth on YouTube, like that dumbass knucklehead Jill. Oh, I'm free. I am free. All I know is Jesus. I mean, again, knuckleheads like that, all you got to do is give him some SSI money every month to pay for his sweet treat snacks and to pay for his YouTube, and give him the freedom to go on YouTube and go on these live streams and talk about bullshit all day, right? Give the knucklehead that, and basically he'll believe whatever you want and brag about how free he is. He's a free man just because he can, go on YouTube and talk about whatever he wants all day. Again, knuckleheads like Jill, hey, the truth is way over their head. It's truly sad, but hey, somebody has to be that 2/3, right? Somebody, hey, look, not everybody can have the truth, right? That's just the fact of the matter is not everybody in the world can have the truth. There always has to be somebody, and more likely than not, a large group of people who don't have the truth, right? There's going to be some people who are awake and aware of what's going on in the world, and there's going to be, on the other hand, a large amount of people who are not aware, or as we call them, asleep, or as we call them, a sheep, right? So that's just what it is. Not everybody can have this knowledge, right? Not everybody can be awoke to know what's going on. And that could be anything, whether we're talking about like a, Bible-related topic, or, knowing about, the possibility of SHTF being around the corner, right? And government corruption. And all these, secret societies and, some world events, right? The truth behind them. Again, not everybody can acknowledge that there is something being hidden from them. Again, a lot of people, it's an easy life that they live, just getting up, going to work, and letting the government take care of everything and, do the thinking for them. Again, that's what they want. They want a nation of gullible, ignorant sheep. They don't want a nation of rational thinking people. They want a nation of brain-rotted sheep who obey their master and don't ask questions. Like, say, for instance, the average American will say, oh, well, I'm free in America. But then on the other hand, they'll turn around and say, well, I'm a law-abiding citizen. It's like, okay, I mean, how can you be free, but on the other hand, you brag about being obedient to a ruler and a master, and brag about following his guidelines and commandments? Like, that's not free. It's remarkable, but this is how brainwashed people are. Nobody knows how to think in America anymore. As I said, everybody in America is basically a brainwashed sheep, and that's just what it is. As far as the bunkers, let's go back to that real quick. It's not just something that's happening here in the States. This is happening all around the world, right? Bunkers are being created literally all over the world. The Philippines, Japan, China, of course the USA, Thailand, so on and so forth. Bunkers are being installed all around the world right now by their governments, or their celebrities that dwell in these countries. There's actually a reference to these bunkers being built in the book of Revelation, which I'll pull for you here. But it talks about these men, and that day that Christ comes back, they're going to take refuge in the dens of the mountains, and in the rocks of the mountains, and in the holes of the mountains. So basically it's talking about these bunkers that they have installed, which, as I mentioned earlier, typically are in mountains, right? They put them in elevated positions. Sometimes they're just underground. It just depends. All right, this is Revelation chapter 6. And we'll go to verse 12 on down. It says, "And behold, when he had opened the sixth seal, and though there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood, and the stars of heaven fell unto the earth, even as a tree cast her untimely figs, when she is shaken of a mighty wind. And the heavens departed as a scroll when it's rolled together, and the mountains and islands were moved out of their places, and the kings of the earth, and the great men, and the rich men, and the chief captains, and the mighty men, and every bondman and every free man, hid themselves in the dens and rocks of the mountains, and said to the mountains and rocks, Fall upon us, and hide us from the face of him that sits upon the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb. For the great day of his wrath has came, and who will be able to stand?" Right, so in Revelation, the 6th chapter, it gives a reference to, in that day, men are going to take refuge in the dens of the mountains. So that's talking about these bunkers that they have installed around the world. Like, seriously, there are, look this up on YouTube. You can look up, secret military bunkers, or, doomsday bunkers. You're going to find, like 100,000 videos where they actually show you these places, around the world, right? So this is where the elites of this society, plan on retreating to, right, during the end times of World War III and, collapse of this society. Again, these bunkers are filled with provisions that are going to, allow them to survive for, 50 or 100 years. But little do they know is they're going to be hunted, right? They're going to be hunted out of these hiding places. Just to back that up, this is the book of Jeremiah, chapter 16, verse 14 to 16. It says, "Therefore, behold, the days come, says the Lord. There shall no more be said that the Lord liveth, that brought up the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt. But the Lord liveth, that brought up the children of Israel from out of the land of the north, and from all the lands whither he hath driven them. And I will bring them again into their land, and give unto them, and I will give unto their fathers." Verse 16, "Behold, I will send for many fishers, says the Lord, and they shall fish them. And after will I send for many hunters, and they shall hunt them from every mountain and from every hill and out of the holes of the rocks." Right, so basically it's talking about that in that day, that Christ is going to send his elect and the angels, and they're going to gather together, these men who are hiding away in these bunkers, right, and in the mountains, and they're going to be caught, right? They're going to be taken in the snare. They're going to be taken and, put into chains, right? They're going to be building up this new empire on this earth, which, most people would refer to the kingdom of heaven, but that's what their future is, right? They're going to be servants, but I just want to do a quick lesson about the subject, because I don't think a lot of people pay much attention to that all these celebrities are building these doomsday bunkers around the world. But yet, on the other hand, them and the government, they'll tell the population, there's nothing to worry about, nothing to take serious. What they're really doing is keeping you asleep while they have the foreknowledge that something big's around the corner. And that's obvious to see. But anyway, I'm going to wrap the video up there.